Hello everybody, welcome to the Comic Gamer Movie Show. My name is Deshaun and today I'm here to review another Disney Plus original. Now, I have not really talked about any of the series that Disney Plus has been producing, and because I haven't really watched any of them. I didn't watch the High School Musical one because I'm not a High School Musical guy, even though I have heard from people who are High School Musical fans that they enjoyed the High School Musical series that they made. And I haven't watched that one about the little girl grows up to become the president because I just didn't think it was for me. Though I have heard good things about that too, and it has a high score on Rotten Tomatoes. But one of the things that Disney said they were going to do, along with a couple other things they said they're going to do later, is one of the things that Disney was going to do for sure is make sequels on their most popular classic IP. And one of the ones that they announced a long time ago, before Disney Plus even got going, before Disney Plus launched, was the Mighty Ducks. Now, me personally, I loved the Mighty Ducks trilogy. Granted, the Mighty Ducks kind of works a lot like most a lot of trilogies, sports trilogies, and things of that nature, especially for Disney. Which is the first movie is a genuinely good sports movie. It's a genuinely good sports movie about the underdogs overcoming, about this coach who found the love of the sport, about this coach, former player, who found the love of hockey through these kids. And them finding, courage and all the things that come with sports, courage, camaraderie, just overcoming, and, it was a beautiful movie. I love that first Mighty Ducks. I thought that first Mighty Ducks was great. The sequels were cool, but they never lived up to that original. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the Rocky movies, because if you go back and look back at the Rocky movies, you realize that the most critically successful Rocky movie was that first one. The first one got Oscar nominations out the wazoo. I mean, it's like it's almost a 90. It's like a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's the critical huge hit. And after that, there were good Rocky movies, but none of them ever reached that level of critical praise ever again. Even Creed, while it was well received, never reached the level of critical praise that the first Rocky reached. And and I think that's kind of the same thing that happened with the Mighty Ducks sequels 2 and 3. They had to keep escalating, and the more they escalated it, the less it became about what it originally was about. They evolved the narrative around other things, and other things evolved. But for the most part, that first Mighty Ducks movie does stand head and shoulders above the sequels, for the most part. So it was crazy. It was crazy to hear that they were going to make a movie. I mean, a show, 10-episode show called The Mighty Ducks Game Changers. Now, this show is about this single mom named Alex whose son Evan is a massive hockey fan. He grew up in the town. This takes place in the same town, same area that the Mighty Ducks took place in. And now this is like many years later. This has to be like 20 years later, 20-something years later. The Mighty Ducks aren't the same team they used to be, and it kind of brings up a point that I think of in every sports thing, which is why most sports movies and most sports things in general don't have long, what's the word I'm looking for? Long stories, so to speak. Like, they don't have multiple sequels, because there comes a certain point, because the whole motif around the Mighty Ducks, the whole thing around the Mighty Ducks is they're the underdog. But, at a certain point, you stop being the underdog. I kind of was thinking about it like this. There's two examples. One, Tom Brady and the Patriots. I know I'm just going to speak. I am a huge football fan, so I feel like this is kind of apropos to what basically happened to the Mighty Ducks. When you're that good for that long, at a certain point, you stop being the underdog. At a certain point, when you pull that kind of stuff off, first of all, it works like college, too. Them being that successful made other kids want to go, made other, talented kids want to go to that school. The more talented kids wanted to go to that school, the better the school wanted to go to that, play for that team. The better the team got, the better the more powerful the team got. Eventually, the team becomes a powerhouse, and it becomes a bigger deal than this scrappy team. Eventually, the scrappiness is gone. You are Goliath. This is like, what if David took down hundreds of Goliaths? At a certain point, David ceases to be this underdog, and he's Goliath now, because you've taken down, clearly, you're not the underdog anymore. And essentially what happened is, at least that's what you're led to believe is, as the time went on, and as you know, if you've been following sports, sports has taken an interesting turn. I'd say the last 10 years, I'd say the last maybe 10 or 12 years, like it was always about athletes and your body and whatnot, but it's taken a strong turn. I mean, to the point where like, you got kids coming out of middle school being like under like strict diets and workout regimens and like the certain foods they can eat, who they can hang with. Like parents are like it's getting hardcore now, and like technology has evolved to the point where it's kind of crazy now. It's less about what it used to be. It used to be kind of more like that's the whole, and like they kind of played with that idea in this show in the first episode, at least only seen the first episode, is like how crazy it's getting, especially with parents and their kids. Because on one hand, and I had this confliction watching it, on one hand, if you see your kids talented at something, you want to, help them. You want to help them be the best at what they're great at that they can be, and you want to push them to be great. But on the other hand, it's still a kid. And at the same time, are you sacrificing them having a normal, good life for the sake of them being successful? And that's an interesting concept that they play with in the show, is maybe these parents and maybe these organizations with these kids are going a bit too far. It's still a sport and it's still supposed to be fun for kids. Anyways, Ian loves like all of these kids who grew up in this town basically like most of them like hockey, and most of them grew up hearing the stories about the Mighty Ducks. The Mighty Ducks are a huge organization now. Gordon Bombay is not a part of it anymore. There's this new young guy who's running the Mighty Ducks, but they're the powerhouse of this whole area, which is so funny, like to see it like that. Like to see that, it's like, wow, I like that. I like the idea that it's like, yeah, the team you used to root for is now, you know what I mean? It's like watching it's like if they did a Bad News Bear sequel to like direct sequel, and like brought back Billy Bob Thornton and whatnot. This is probably how it would be. The Bad News Bears wouldn't be, they'd be a power team now, because like, oh no, because that's what happens when you get success. But anyways, Evan wants to play for the team. He gets cut. The guy basically just, tell the coach basically just tells him, just basically crushes his dreams in front of the parents, in front of the other players, and his mom flips out on that coach, and needless to say, that wasn't a smart idea. And they come up with the concept, let's make our own team, because essentially all you need is a practice field, a practice area, a ring that you can play at, that other teams can play at, and that you can play at, that you can practice at. You need proper equipment, and you need a certain amount of players and a coach, and you can make your own hockey team. Like, it's that simple. If you can get all these things, you can make your own hockey team. So they come up with an idea. They're like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. The mom's like, we're going to make our own team. We're going to get all the players that nobody wanted, all the players who didn't think they could make it. And, like I said, it's kind of got a Bad News vibes to it. It's got the ragtag vibe to it. The kid, like the son Evan's going around trying to convince different people to maybe join their cause. People who may not even be into this sport, but they have attributes that lend itself to being in the sport. I dug that. I really did. I dug that. It was fun seeing them interact with all these different people, and seeing there's just one kid in particular who's like ridiculous at the hockey game, and go figure, he has the skill sets in real life to maybe be a great goalie. But he's nervous, and there's also another girl who's on the Mighty Ducks who she is talented, but she's kind of a reflection of the parents pushing their children too far, because literally, like, he's talking to her, Evan's talking to her, and he's like, look, I know you don't really love playing for the Mighty Ducks. Your parents are pushing you. You messed up your knee, and like, you just can't. You messed up your knee, and you're still pushing through it because your parents are pushing you. Like, so there's this underlining of that, and even one, and then. But when they where they get the ring from is Gordon Bombay. Yes, Gordon Bombay shows back up in this, and he's a different man than he was the last time you saw him. He's kind of disenchanted. That's the best description to say what he is, because he's disenchanted with hockey. So I saw someone else review describe it as he's lost the love. He's lost the love and the fun for hockey. And that's pretty much what it is. It's not like he's a mean, nasty guy. He can be a bit grumpy, but for the most part, it's like he lost his love for the game. And the only reason he even gives him the ring is because he's broke, is because he ain't making a lot of money. He can barely keep this place operational, and like, she gives him a nice, thick, fat check to, let them stay there, and he's like, okay, yeah, you can stay. I mean, when you first meet him, like I said, man, he's like freaking eating like leftover birthday cake that some kids, because he runs this just skate ring for like kids, and sometimes kids have birthday parties and they leave and forget the cake, and he's just like eating birthday cake, and like it's pretty funny. It's actually pretty funny. But like I said, but he's so fun. He is fun and interesting. But eventually he tells the mom, he's like, actually, you're part of the problem too, because you're overbearing over him. And like that's really the big arcing like thing that so far is being overbearing parent. How much can you protect your child before you become too much? Before you become a hindrance to them? Because if you're always protecting them, they don't know how to handle it themselves. And if you're always trying to solve the problems for them, if you're always trying to cut their freaking... Well, they made a joke about cutting his grapes, because apparently his mom cuts his grapes because she thinks he might choke. Which was a good joke. Because it came back later. It came back up again later when literally he choked on a grape, so it's kind of funny. But yeah, so they bring that up and it's very obvious. But I enjoyed this, honestly. I had been putting off watching it, honestly, because it came out on Friday, and I was like, I want to watch it because I loved the Mighty Ducks as a kid, and I'm like, you know what, I kind of want to watch this, but I don't know. It looks like it might suck. Shockingly, to my surprise, it actually has a fresh Rotten Tomato score. That thing, Game Changers, has an 85% Rotten Tomato score. In fact, that's the highest rated audience score that Disney Plus has is on this show. And I'm like, wow, I didn't see that coming. But I had a good time with the show, man. I enjoyed myself. It's definitely for a younger audience. But if you grew up in if you're in early 2000s, if you grew up in the early 2000s like I did, and you watch those old movies, the Mighty Ducks. If you're a fan of the Mighty Ducks, you're gonna have a fantastic time with this. I'm a huge fan of the Mighty Ducks, so maybe I'm more inclined to enjoy this. But I enjoyed it. I'd give it an 8. Episode 1 of the Mighty Ducks, Game Changers, Game On. I would give an 8. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. So thank you guys for the Comic Gaming Movie Show. Please really like, subscribe. Check out the Mighty Ducks Game Changers on Disney Plus. Thank you.